to make a proposal for the development of an old industrial site along a valley. And what I think is interesting is somehow that they conceived nature and building as part of a same design, where the agricultural land and its different seasons and its different cultures somehow are designed in the similar way as the buildings are designed, and where even the water that is collected on the roof of the buildings is again used to water the fields that you can see here at the bottom of the valley. While in the case of Giraud, somehow it was the river who took over. Here it seems that the landscape and the buildings are part of a larger design. Same can be seen in this project by Aurelio Galfetti, again the architect who built the castle, where through a very careful reading of the landscape and the morphology of the landscape, he takes it over and builds a unit between the dam and the circular landscape of the mountains, which suddenly are conceived as one dam blocking the water, naturally grown, let's say, and human built. And how important these investigations are can be seen here in this in the second project. So the first project we saw, the project we saw is this one, and somehow he tries to, actually the dam is on the peak of a valley, in a valley, and it's closed on two sides. Here it goes to Italy, here to Switzerland, and you need somehow two dams to enclose the valley. This is the one we just saw before, marking a circle. But as architects, somehow you can decide either to underline the landscape, as he does here, or on the contrary, to oppose it and to make a sign that contrasts to it. That is investigations or engagement with the topography are not only formal ones, but somehow could extend it to other aspects, is seen in a very nice, quite radical and non-reliable project that was proposed by then a rather young firm from Geneva, made in. It's the time where the biggest tunnel through the Alps were built for the railway connecting Germany to Italy through Switzerland. And during the construction, a series of shafts had to be built to dig out the earth and to bring air into the construction site. And the municipality was thinking, what could they do with this empty shaft? And the project that Made In proposes here is to use the air that is pushed through the tunnel to resonate and to make noise, or to somehow to bring the air to create a music thanks to the shape of the mountain. As you can see in this analogy somehow between an amphitheater and the Alps, that the Alps are used in a similar way to enhance the sound as it was done in classical architecture. Now, to come back, it seems that Swiss architecture, and this is the conclusion, seems to align very much with an older tradition to engage somehow with the mountain. But what I think is more important, that the way somehow it engages with the nature has dramatically changed. While the mountain were considered in the 19th century to be simply the background of the buildings, that's also the interest of John Ruskin, somehow seeing an analogy between these fragmented edges and the fragmentation of the mountain. or when Viollet-le-Duc somehow was looking at the Alps as buildings that erode and can be repaired, or when Bruno Taut was proposing somehow the mountain as an alternative place to be inhabited in a modern tradition, or when, even in the 1960s, somehow the architects were imagining building new mountains. It seems, however, that the way we engage with nature is very specific. That the nature and the Alps are not anymore a background, that they are not anymore a blank territory that can be shaped, as in the 20th century, but it's an environment in which and with which we are today most closely related, and to say it a little bit dramatically, as a matter of life and death. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Even second time for me to follow your lecture. Still very important, especially maybe the former part we were more familiar, but the later part, especially emphasizing the shift and the shift of from the time, the situation of the development to the point of influence of the Italians' theory, and then to rethink of the Swiss architecture, and then reconstructing a theory of architecture and nature. Like Herzog de Meuron, very impressive. The exhibition in Canada, very impressive. And to the last point, I don't want to summarize anything, but the turn it's the time for professors and students to have comment this discussion. And first, as we follow the poster, we invite Professor Liu Yichun to give some comments or respond to Professor's lecture.
我是在这说。
你在这里，你在这里，在这里。
Yes. Speak in Chinese.
Yeah, I can translate.
Yes, yes, please in Chinese.
首先非常的感谢老汉教授给我们做的这场关于瑞士建筑的一个整体认识的这样的一个讲座。然后这个瑞士建筑其实也是我在从业过程当中一个特别重要的一个参照。从某种程度上，它好像在我的实践历史上成为一种好像在对抗，比如说偏资本主义或者美国那种建筑文化发展的一种抵抗的一种武器。就它的这种自主性啊，就是强调这个学科自主性，或者说它在从1970年以来，从阿尔德罗西影响下，整个瑞士一代一代的建筑师，这样对于建筑的自主性的这样的一种克制的思考与实践，我觉得形成了对于整个全球化建筑的这种资本主义影响的一个非常重要的一个抵抗。然后这个也让我对这个整个作为一个国家的建筑的这样的一个发展，然后对比我们就比如中国自己的当代建筑的发展，会产生一个非常有趣的一个对比。那么总体来说，今天关于这个瑞士70年以来的这些建筑，大致可以分为三个阶段，就是70年是罗西影响下的关于就是建筑就是一种形式的这样的一种非常强烈的 自主性的这样的一种看法和态度。 然后
three
再到这
period
个
of
80年左右，
architecture.
这个
From
关于这
this
个
theory to
建筑氛围的
80s,
重要性，也
80s,
就是说把氛围作
from
为
typology to
对
atmosphere.
对形式的一种反思哈，我是这么想的。然后今天讲氛围的时候，罗汉教授只是讲了关于这个 atmosphere。 他没有提，他其实在他那个早年的一些文章里面提了，首先是一个意大利文的 ambient 啊 ambient 就是
ambient
对 ambient 这样一个词
Atmosphere.
ambient
Ambient
但我觉得又不完全是 atmosphere， 然后还有一个德语的单词叫 Stimmung。 所以我觉得这三个词会是一个特别有意思的三个，因为它是三个不同的语言，然后中国的跟中国的氛围也不一样。刚才卢汉教授讲，就是关于 atmosphere， 好像是更加强调被空气包裹的是，它把对建筑的这种表达或者说影像的一种 surface 一种表面，和一种氛围。但是我觉得在这个德语的那个 Stimmung 那个词里面，它其实更加强调的是一种先于符号的表达，就是一种直觉的认知，而不是一个视觉的，就强调人的这种感受的、感知的、直觉感知的这样的一个词语。我觉得这个词其实对我个人的影响是非常大的。比如说，我的建筑强调结构对于人身体的这种影响。我觉得这个结构对人身体的影响，它是一种在就 before stylization， 就是在先于符号的一种表达，直觉的对身体的一种影响。我觉得这个是一种 Stimmung， 就是一个结构所产生的一种特殊的这种氛围。我觉得这个好像跟 atmosphere 还不一样。对，然后我觉得在瑞士建筑当中，这一点是对我的影响还是很大的，对我来说是很明显的。比如说卢汉教授刚开始提到的那 concert 的桥，然后 concert 作为一个建筑师，其实跟相当多的结构工程师跟相当多的瑞士建筑师进行合作。然后我觉得瑞士建筑里面结构的这个对身体的直接的影响，我觉得是非常非常强烈的。然后在ATH的这个教学里面也有关于这个结构的教学，他们叫做强结构 （strong structure）。对，然后这个当然也让我能够对比瑞士的结构工程师跟建筑师的合作，比如说跟日本的结构工程师和日本的建筑师的合作里面，他们对待结构的态度也有一个非常有意思的对比。我觉得从瑞士建筑可以很明显的可以看得到。对。然后到了这个90年代左右，其实也就是说，或者80年代后期，从赫佐格德穆隆为代表的对材料、对表皮的关注，也就是罗汉教授讲的就是 collage 啊，然后特别是关于这个material process， 就是物质进程，就是时间跟材料的关系，就是把对材料的那种认知，把它放到一个时间，放到一个自然的历史里面，而不是一个人文的历史里面去理解。我觉得这个特别的有意思。也就是说他把建筑的历史，他把这个材料的历史，不是看成是一种文化的历史，而是看成一种是物质的历史。这个我觉得就是有一种艺术的观念性在里面。那么这个时候就让我重新回想前面2个发展历史，我觉得整个瑞士建筑的一个自主性的一个发展，我觉得实际上从根本上是一种观念性，是一种被强烈的观念艺术所影响下的一种建筑自主性的发展。我不知道对不对啊，我也想听听罗汉老那个教授的意见啊。然后在这个观念的对于材料的这种观念性的表达里面，我觉得就是一种抽象性会很重要。比如说这个
conceptualizing the material.
Exactly.
And abstraction, abstracting the material.
石头、混凝土都用一个白色的这样的一个涂料去把它涂掉，然后让其实你如果仔细去阅读的话，你又能够去捕捉到那个背后的木结构，那个半木结构，那个石头那个材料。其实我们能够意识到那是一个石头的材料，但是它被一个白色的涂料把这个材料的本身的那种性质好像又给它抽离了啊。然后让人们，我觉得对材料去重新去有一个思考，我觉得这是一种观念的表达。我觉得是在让，或者从某种程度上好像是想重新去建立建筑作为跟其他艺术门类不一样的一种建筑自身的一个存在的一个东西。我觉得在这里面是一个有这样一个很强烈的意图在里面。对。那么这个是我觉得大概是我从讲座里面然后能够体会到的，就是这个瑞士建筑的这样的一个发展的一个历程。这个历程我觉得是有一个强烈的这种观念性在里面。那么的确就是说，我觉得这个比如像赫佐格德蒙他们受到非常多的艺术家的影响，比如说这个波伊斯对材料的这种方式也体现在他们建筑里面。那么他跟很多艺术家的合作，包括他那个曹格的那个工作室，直接让那个屋顶的水把那个混凝土表面形成青苔，形成一种时间的一种痕迹，来传递氛围、传递时间、传递材料。那么试图从这样的一种观念的方面，能够去思考建筑的本质是什么？刚才给我特别一个强烈的一个信息，就我以前不知道，就是它这个贝林佐纳的这个城堡的那个原来的山上那个石头是有树的，它没有现在建筑是把树全部剥掉，把那个石头露出来。在今天看来好像特别不生态，好像是一种反自然的一种态度哈。然后我觉得这里面的确是有非常强烈的这种观念，引导我们去思考什么是自然，或者自然的历史是什么。这个是我的一些简单的感受，作为一个回应，也不知道对或者不对，也希望能够得到教授的。
Thank you. You like to respond?
Yeah. Thank you very much. I'm very touched and impressed by the conclusion you did, and I will try to engage quickly on terminologies. Quickly. Stimmung, Atmosphäre, Ambiente. It's very interesting, as the Italian discussion of Ambiente was very much linked to the historical city. So Rogers, who built the tower in Milano, the big tower, speaks about ambiente. So the condition of the site are important. So it's a cultural conception. Stimmung is a German term. So ambiente is Italian. Stimmung is a German term. And I think probably the best definition has been given by Simmel, who is a sociologist, an important sociologist, who speaks about the quality of a painting is when the painter is able to frame a part of nature with a particular Stimmung. So it's the capacity somehow to catch within a landscape or within the right frame and to find the topic, like probably this one here. This is Stimmung for Simmel. And atmosphere seems to me, and I think this is also interesting, to me very scientific. So it comes from physics with gas, and then it's translated into the field of aesthetics. But it seems to me to relate very much on a lot of elements which go beyond the visual, which is also the sound, the smell, the humidity. And so there seems to be it's not, we are not able to define because everybody uses it differently, but seems to be at least 3 different points through which we can play. The cultural, the visual, and perhaps the more sensual. Yeah. Could be. Yeah. That's what I like very much that you pointed out again.
Yes, I just read an article by Martin Steinmann.
Yes, he speaks from Stimmung. Yeah, Martin Stimmung, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, we have.
I'm ready.
You also you have done lots of work with dialogue with nature and territory.
Yeah.
Just quick feedback. I think it's a fantastic lecture. Especially, I think the brief history of Switzerland is very special. Especially from 1970 all the way to the 2000. It's quite different. If the parallel with the history in America is kind of postmodernism. I think from the atmosphere statement and what's the words in America, I think it's kind of mood. Because in the States it's kind of postmodernism is kind of mood because the understanding of architecture is from the outlooking and feedback to the mindset of the human body. So it's kind of all the way, it's visionary and dynamic. It's kind of feedback to the mood system. So postmodernism is quite different, which leading almost most of the world, including China, from the 80s to 90s, most of the culture is influenced by the States. But parallel to Europe, I think it's very special. In Spain, Fonchi can give some feedback. From the 70s to the 80s, it's kind of a rationalism. It's purely, I think, painting is white and the proportion, everything, the facade, the representation of the initial logic of the functions and also the layout is purified to be a strong contrast to the States. While when we're looking into Switzerland, I think also it's different. So the most impressive, I think, is kind of a relationship to the nature. It's kind of representing the nature in a modern way. I think if it's kind of autonomy, it's the autonomy of the relationship to connecting the people, the atmosphere. I think maybe the Switzerland atmosphere is kind of subjective. The subjective is from the experience, not only the object of the building, but also a relationship from the building to the nature. So that's the special part of the modernism and autonomy of the Switzerland. I think it's quite impressive. You can see, looking through, maybe it's from the geometry perspective, it's quite strongly relate to the Spanish or from Norwegian and some of the architect is some relation. Then it's very geometrical. I think it's rational geometrical. Put this geometry, the architect's geometry, object into the landscape. I think that is the first impression. But secondly, not just the geometry. What's beyond geometry is the material. I think almost these 30 years, I think the common, not only from Snorzi to all the way to Bruno regime, I think they all introduce the stone, for example, or maybe the timber, or this kind of traditional material, very local material, put them into the pure geometry system. I think it's kind of representation because they use the natural material as part of the geometry. That brings a special atmosphere because when you're touching and walking around, it's not a German style. The statement is kind of looking, kind of framing, but the Swiss style is kind of experience. It's a dynamic touching. You can touching this kind of material, not just for looking, but for touching. So this kind of touching experience, I think, is a difference between the Swiss autonomy to the Spanish autonomy or to the state's autonomy. I think that's the most special part. So inside this kind of material process, we can see the building technology as a kind of technology perspective. You can see how to lay out all this material. It's very strong modern style because that is quite different and beyond the classical or the other building technology, including the sections, including how to introduce light, also including how to put all this material, the different thickness of the wall and the window relationship and the ceiling sections, these kind of details, is a kind of design. You can see this kind of design is kind of invention of the autonomy, which is from the technology perspective. I think it's quite impressive because it's so simple, including the Pt.2. I think when we're looking into all the details of design, it's kind of invention. I never see such a thick wall and such a connection of three materials can put together as a very sharp, very special joint. I think that's the details also becomes part of the autonomy. But the detail is not from spatial, it's not from, I think, layout of the plan, but it's from the Swiss architects really appreciate or really admire the technology in their very simple geometry system. So that's, we can see, and also I think put this kind of detailed design as kind of experience, including the lighting system, including how to introduce the people with the nature and the connection, all this kind of dialogues. So that's and I think we always, from our understanding, we name it T-channel school, including the early part, several architects. I think they give a strong influence to nostalgia culture actually in contemporary China. When we introduced the nostalgia and modernism here in China, we always quoting a lot from the Swiss architects.
Sorry for that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of 20 or 30 years later what's happened in China, but the context is different. But the same thing is kind of connection to the context. I think in the early, maybe 70s, it's very purely influenced by Rossi, but all the way go to the 80s, late 80s to the beginning of the 90s, we can see this kind of relation to the context in Switzerland. We can see that. So this kind of relation is more than the, I think autonomy is more than the geometry or the object of the building itself. It's kind of relationship to the context. The context including what you're talking about, the relation to the landscape, including your relation to maybe the also the impressive building of your tear down, cutting all the trees and showing kind of boundary, or that is the middle point. After that building, I think we in the Switzerland, this kind of modernism is put the subject and object as a kind of connection. I think after that, introduces kind of a dialogue between the object and the subject. So this kind of very interesting because a lot of information coming, and some of the architects were so familiar, including Pt.2, including this kind of invention, including burning down the timber, the support mode system to be part of the interior tectonic decoration or tectonic material system is kind of, because when you burn down, the concrete is changed, switched to some very dark. You'll be touched by this kind of feeling. So this is a kind of artistic invention, mostly influence a lot of the other countries, because normally this kind of formalism style influence of the young architects, but actually the invention from the artistic or creative process is from to create the details, creating from the materials, this kind of real touching materials or details of the building becomes part of the building system. So I think strongly the invention artistic process relate to the building technology. Is from my perspective, rational but strongly relate
to the body.
So it's kind of integration. That's also an impressive part for the Swiss practice. So it's difficult to make conclusion from my side, but I think if from what Yichun mentioned, the atmosphere and the Stina, I think German is more like stable, static, like this word we to analyze, to analysis this Van der Rohe's glass frame by the proportion framing the nature, because glass is kind of framing. It's kind of stable, but in Switzerland it's a dynamic. I think it's a dynamic experience from the material perspective. It's totally different. So that's very impressive. I think it's different culture, but it's kind of maybe sometimes the separation is good. It's not a globalization. It still keep a lot of invention from the local creative process. So that's the value part, and also impressive. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, it's very touching and impressive to see that I have to come to China to learn more about Swiss architecture. I think I never had this kind of deep discussion and comments that I just received from you, Professor Liu, and you, Professor Yuan. So I thank you very much. I want to respond just two things to your presentation. It's my footnotes. I think you underlined very much the relation between architects and engineers. This is, I think, the first important aspect. The second important aspect is that also the teachers are practicing architecture in our school, and I think this is also something that relates them automatically to the problem of everyday building. And I think this is something we have been fighting for, and I think this is also one of the specificity. I don't know if it's quality or not, but that's, it's a specificity, I think, of the Swiss context. The second point is about where I was deeply touched also as person is when you saw the autonomy as an enabling the people. I thought this is a wonderful way of describing it. Mario Botta, in an interview which I did with him, gave a beautiful response, is saying we wanted somehow to be political through architecture. So we didn't want to take party left or right or good or bad, but somehow through architecture we wanted to contribute to the society. And I think this is how you describe it, enabling school children, enabling inhabitants, enabling others to live well. And I think, and now perhaps this is also a specificity which relates then to the question of globalization and global capitalism. Switzerland is a very small country, is ridiculously small, so it can exclude a lot of things which are happening in the global scale. Somehow, we can import solar panels from China without having to think neither how they have been transported nor produced somehow. But it has built up. It has a very the strongest political unit is the municipality. Strangely, so all competition somehow and all important buildings are launched by municipalities. So it can go from 100 people. So a municipality has 100 people, and the biggest municipality has 400,000. So it's a very small unit. But I think what is interesting with the competition system is that you have the people being engaged in the process of choosing and engaging for architecture. And I think this is also perhaps the resistance is not only, it would be, I think, too easy to say that the architects are resisting. I think it's very much inscribed within a larger political system, that this resistance can be, and it doesn't happen all the time, as you have seen through the drawings, the photos that I've shown from the Swiss landscape somehow. Okay, these are the 2 points I wanted to respond, and again, I'm deeply touched by your responses. Thank you very much. You should write something about Swiss architecture together. I think it would be a big contribution.
I think Professor Wang Fangxi, you like to say something with Professor. Yeah. As our dean already mentioned, and also comparing
Okay.
like Spanish architect and Swiss architect. So still very global, huh?
Thanks very much, Professor. Professor, and actually, for me, I'm also practicing architect. So by trying to do practice, we studied a couple of Switzerland architects projects.
Yeah.
But this lecture is actually luxury dinner for me, since especially when you mentioned the Marcel Bailey, when he, by the time of 1989, there was I think a kind of understanding of like defense with the atmosphere by Autonomy, and then they are come the new kind of like more atmosphere-oriented kind of understanding of design. So for me, this is very good understanding. So actually, it's a quite long period of time. I am not quite sure why there is a change of Switzerland design, since we studied quite close, like Loikis, Nuzi, and Botta, and trying to, for us, it's like simple to like study how they organize space, and like Botta, when he has a circle, he's able to like cut and make the rooms very easy to be used. Although the premier line is a circle, and also we studied like Herzog de Meuron and Dina. So especially when we shift to Herzog de Meuron, and he also mentioned in his text that he followed Adalos a lot, and he said he has a lot of interference from Adalos. So for me, I was really curious how this transition happened. So this lecture is really, for me, I think very happy to understand this evolution of this Switzerland change of Switzerland architecture. Can I borrow a?
Yes, this is. Oh, this is the thing.
Okay. Yeah, since we studied like Herzog de Meuron's building, and for us, we first when we studied this in Italy, it's not.
It's very. No, it's not earthquake.
Okay,
no.
so like Switzerland.
It's near Switzerland,
Yes. In Italy.
So it's no.
No earthquake. No. It's a
building like very thin structure. So what we understand first is like here, since they height the structure. So then this piece and this piece are like merged, and you don't have a normal kind of feeling of a structure, but this stone is more like infill into the structure. But as we studied more close, so this is my first question. As we studied close, we found in the like limited kind of images they published, they have a very big difference, since the plan and also the final result, actually they don't match. They are very different. So my first question is there like a more image-oriented, since we are not able to visit that kind of remote place, so is there like image-oriented kind of architectural presentation similar with this kind of publication? Later maybe we can able to find out the images in Switzerland. That's the first question. And the second is about the atmosphere. So after the lecture, I understand how the atmosphere comes from. And for me, I always has a question of since some of the Chinese architects, after they are trained in Switzerland, they are quite relying on a perfect image, perfect rendering. So as in a Chinese context, this kind of strategy sometimes it doesn't work very well, since we have very complex, for example, the building sometimes it's not, the final function is not set yet, and then we start to design for that kind of complex situations. And also, we don't have very good craftsmen. You have to face very basic contractors. So that's the reason probably for the image or kind of orientation strategy is, for me, I think it's a little bit not able to be understood. So the second question is how is it after observing of the Chinese situation, how you are able to talk about this topic.
Good. Okay. The first question I will ask the office, and we'll try to get some good plans. I've not been there, so I will ask somebody from the office, and I will contact it with you. So this is the first question. The second, I think this is a very complicated question and a very good question, as the autonomy is very ambiguous. In the good sense, it's enabling the people. In the bad sense, is that architecture becomes an art piece. And it's interesting to see that a series of architects have been working for brands. So for instance, water bottles are conceived by architects, the bottle of mineral water. So it becomes a way also of making money somehow. So the image has also shifted partially into this more commercial dimension. But in the first stance, when Miroslav Šek and his students begin to draw, it's a very crafted way of studying. So the design is, if the semester is 4 months, perhaps the design is 6 weeks, and after it's 2 months of working on the drawing. So the drawing itself was very much a craft. But as you rightly said, that somehow in the 2000s, 2010s, contractors begin to want perfect, with the upcoming of digital tools, of renderings, the contractors wants to have the perfect image even before one knows what will happen. So we see now, at least within the competition, a series of younger offices who very much question this way of doing. So for instance, to come back to these architects here, they have been developing incredibly critical tools. So in their competition, they don't present the perfect shaped project, but they use images to create a kind of archetypes. So the image, if they have a big courtyard, for instance, they have been using a palazzo from the Renaissance, saying this will be a courtyard. So one knows that nobody will build column like this, but the idea of the courtyard is then given. And then they combine, for instance, a Renaissance courtyard with the deck of a warship where you could land. So by combining the images, somehow they critically question this perfect renderings. This was quite a radical. They ever lose the competition, but somehow it brought a very big consciousness on how unprecise these renderings are. And so the younger today often do not render, in the competition do not give renderings, but also often submit drawings, hand drawings, where somehow the difference between the realized project and the intention is clearly visible. Because but somehow it's cheating the client also to pretend after 2 weeks to know how the building will be. As you say, the program is not fixed, the site is not fixed, the budget is not fixed. And so to find tools which give the client security without promising him the wrong thing, I think this is a very thin line that probably you can do with good clients, and with harsh clients it's not possible to do. So I think there is a small line where you could do resistance somehow. But indeed, the drawing has become a real problem all over the world. And the second aspect, which I think is perhaps also interesting, is that a series of strategies have been thought of what are the pieces within a building that can resist changes. So Marcel Meile, for instance, and Marcos Peter have built a hotel as a kind of very stiff infrastructure where certain walls and certain pillars and certain beams are so big that you cannot change them anymore. So through these elements, like a little bit Louis Kahn perhaps, that there are some structural elements which are so strong in the design that they can resist the changes by the contractors or by the clients. And I think this is probably the smart way to do it, because other elements like the cladding of the walls, the carpets, the facade, is almost impossible to engage. So choosing which elements are crucial for your design and to work on these. Yeah, I think, yeah, because it's also hidden, because the client doesn't understand the structure, you know.
You have more questions, Professor Dong? Professor,
Okay.
you also did a lot.
Maybe I have more questions, not feedback.
Okay.
Thank you for Professor for your very nice lectures. I have only one question. Is about you talk about atmosphere, and first you said the architecture is not a problem of organization, but it's a problem of form. And then we go back to the everyday life. For the example, all the examples, I think they are combined with the nature. But what happens in the city? My question is the atmosphere is still work in the city? Because there have no example in the city and no large-scale buildings in the city. Is there, the problem is still a part of, even a part of organization. It's not only the problem of form. That's my only question.
Yeah, actually, this is a very good question, a complicated question. So I think there is a big divide between the city and, let's say, the periphery, as most of the cities are protected. So somehow big interventions are almost impossible within cities. So this would be, I would say, the first question. And indeed, in the last year, all infrastructure has been built underground. So somehow the underground has become the playground of the engineers, and above ground somehow is the playground of the preservationists. So there is a very strong divide. The problem becomes crucial in the periphery, I think, and that's where and actually 90% of the urbanized landscape in Switzerland is periphery. That's where somehow this interest for the traces of everyday life, which is half planned, where an engineer puts an electric line and then the road engineer puts a road and the signage is given. Somehow to work with these elements becomes one of the main issues. So indeed the city, again, you know, I said Switzerland is small and can escape a lot of global question. I think this is typically one response to this.
As the infrastructure is a very important element for you to explain the Swiss architecture.
Yeah, perhaps that is perhaps also another topic I think which is quite interesting, that some parts of the highways after Italy was not planned, the highways. A big part of Switzerland were not planned. When they built up the highway in Ticino, in the southern part, they hired an artistic committee, which was led by a very good architect, somehow, who was able to change slightly the trace of the road, and especially to focus on certain aspects, so the tunnels and the bridges became part of the design, and the rest was led to the engineer. So it's very interesting to see that somehow there was the possibility to push the line at a certain point in a certain direction, but like today it's again back, so it's back and forth. Yeah, very good. Yeah, but I'm speaking about such a small country, as it seems quite ridiculous, I have to say.
Okay. Very honored to be invited.
Thank you.
To join in this great event, and Professor Lu has created this opportunity for me to just learn from your condensed review and your narrative of the Swiss architectural history. And I think it's a very condensed and very wonderful review, I can see there are a few shifts in Swiss architectural history, starting from the competition, the Polytechnic University competition, which is a megastructure, and shifted to typology from Aldo Rossi and to atmosphere, and finally to 2002 the CCA exhibition, the natural history. And my first question is, if Swiss architecture, the current Swiss, contemporary Swiss architecture is still relevant as the aftermath of the natural history shift? This is my first question. My second question is, I can see there's a very strong legacy of craftsmanship. Studying craftsmanship studying craftsmanship is the prerequisite for studying the natural history, for the natural materialistic process in design and constructing architecture in Swiss, because of the topography and the landscape. And is how craftsmanship was taught in Swiss architecture education. And I understand that there's teaching structure, teaching material, but how to teach the everyday craftsmanship, everyday skills of building and construction. That's my two questions.
Yeah. So the first question I think is a very good one. The second is a structural one, and it's quite easy to answer. It's changing, but somehow there is a so-called dual system. So on the one side there is the academic system, where you would do high school and then university, and then there is a second education, which is a very technical. So when you are 14, you can make an apprenticeship and go into a technical school. So there is this dual system, and craftsmen are very much estimated, and so they are quite wealthy. So it's not because you make university that you became rich. Actually, a good craftsman can become extremely rich. So I think in society there is still this value of non-academic education as part of human life. And the second question, sorry, I forget the first question.
The first question is if we are still in the
no, it's very interesting. I'm thinking about it, and it will shift my narrative, I think, if we're doing what we see now in the younger generation is extremely, and that's why I think the conceptual shift, where somehow there is no difference between old and new, will probably become extremely crucial in the next years, as we are confronted to the necessity of reusing the materials. And there has been in the last year, there is a practice somehow of reuse, which is very common now, but what is more important, I think, is the municipalities has taken a model which has been developed by a private office, which is to collect building parts. So windows, toilets, bricks are collected, and the municipalities are developing websites where we can order the elements. So you have a set of elements which are accessible. And there was an important competition in Basel where for housing, and 5 kilometers from this housing site, there was an old parking garage. It's not the brief of the competition was to use the big concrete slabs of the garage for housing. So this was extremely challenging. There's big problems, like actually the architects, very young architects, they are 32, 33, discovered that they are paid for design, but they are not paid for the whole process, which is, so they are losing a lot of money, I think, but they are extremely, it's a very important project for Switzerland somehow, because suddenly you have to plan the whole process of this. And it's complicated because perhaps the part you have been taking away first will also be the first you want to use. But so how do you put it in on a intermediary site? So it's super interesting, and they are really good. It's a very young office. So I think somehow this shift where material works for its materiality, first and all, is very visible in the young. And we all are old guys, actually, when you see what the young, because they're using a lot of scanning technologies, because every building part they have to scan. And then they have like a library, but it's not the library of Archicad, it's the real library. Yeah. And now I want, because I think it's also important for the technology, it's not only the universities which are in front of technology, actually the craftsmen are extremely technological, which is also very interesting. So you have very old firms, 5 generations of wood carpenters or bricklayers who are super enthusiastic to test the potential of new technology. So my colleagues Kamatz and Kohl have built a brick building with the computer. Now they do a lot of woodwork, so it's really interesting.
This is very impressive.
So.
Craftsman.
A digital craftsman, yeah. Digital craftsmanship, I think, is the new keyword. I'm not sure what it means exactly, but it's the new keyword at last. Yeah.
You have already started.
I think it's interesting because you have a very strong studio system.
Yes.
As well as you have a very strong digital craftsman's technology teaching system. So
Yes.
It's like 2 buildings with
Yes.
a bridge connecting.
Yeah, which is the problem.
It's
Yeah.
totally different, but it's strongly connected by a bridge.
If I can recommend you one thing, is to have history, landscape, preservation, and technology in the same building, with no bridge, within the same building. So they have to meet. Yeah. But you have a nice cafe. We don't have a nice cafe. You have a nice cafe, so you already have the place to do it. Yeah.
Any more questions? Yes,
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry for students, because it's very it's rare to have so many professors discussing. I hope you enjoy the discussion. And we leave some questions to students, please.
Yes.
Please have a big and specific question. Is that how tourism shaped the...
Tourism?
Yes. Because you already mentioned the power inside Switzerland.
Yes.
How they understand nature and remake the nature. But for me, that tourism is another power come from outside.
Yes.
That you should pretend that you are nature.
Yes.
So that's
the staging of nature.
Yeah, that's a big question, but it's interesting for me because nowadays in China that some countryside government, they use images put in the social media and attract people in the city to have a tour in the countryside. So so I want to listen to you.
Complicated question. I will give two answers. The first is the identity of mountains, the discovery of the mountains is English. So the image, Switzerland as a mountain country is an English construction, which fits to a certain reality, but it is very much linked to, for long, the mountains were considered something white, like a desert, which was not inhabited. Of course, the local person would know it very well, but somehow it was not considered as a place to live. So the discovery of the mountain is first the tourist. The second, actually, the transformation of the Switzerland through infrastructure. The tourism has been crucial. Tourism, I would say, and economy. So the roads, as the roads go over from Italy from south to north, and this completely changed our perception of the landscapes. Because suddenly, if you can go with the car or the train to 2,000 meters, you look completely differently on the landscape again. So there is a very interesting back and forth between discovering the mountain, building infrastructure to go on the mountain, and from there again, looking back into the territory. And somehow the frontier, if there is a frontier, the American frontier is the west, the Swiss frontier is the top. Yeah.
So when just one more question. When Switzerland started as a tourist site or resort place? 19th century.
At the beginning, he still has to live with farmers, and the next one in little chalets and then hotels and.
The other side of the mountain, Torino also.
Yeah. Both sides.
More questions from students. It's a good question.
Yeah, very good question. Yeah. Good. Yeah, like Swiss. So I feel very at home. like this.
But mountains and the snows of Switzerland, natural condition, always like some fairyland in some way. But now we have a deeper understanding of what architects thinking and the making up the last you mentioned of the two options.
Yes.
That were very important.
Actually, for understanding how we understand it.
Understand that we are man-made, also part of the natural history.
Yes, because and it's a relation of life and death. It was not just polemical. I think today it's really like this. Yeah. We are facing certain things, and we can decide all to disappear with it, or
even when making something, changing something. Yeah. But we're also a part of the history.
Yes, we are definitely.
So this is I have a question, but I will have to stop.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So thank you so much. It's
Thank you.
a wonderful lecture and a wonderful discussion.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes.